of human experience are called to do. And it is our greatest honor and our greatest pleasure to have with us Thulani. And I know some of you when you say Thulani, you thought it was a guy. Yes, but Thulani has got a very interesting story, firstly on how she got the name Thulani. But I'm going to leave that story to her. You know, it's best when you tell your own story. Yes. So yes, we are Unity Center of Love and Light. And just to give you briefly, Unity, you know, is a healing ministry. It started with healing, and we were discussing with Thulani yesterday. The co-founder of Unity, he was, you know, there were people who had given up on church, and she was diagnosed with tuberculosis at that time. It used to be called consumption, and she was given 6 months at the most to live. And she was a young mother of 3 children, very young mother. She was only 40. And she was told she could go at any time. She was preparing herself, you know, when your children have got 6 months to do the most. And then she started searching, like most of us who search. And she went to a New Thought conference, and there was a speaker there. And the speaker was talking on spiritual healing. And he said, you are a child of God. Therefore, you cannot inherit any else. And at that statement, shook her to the heart. As a child of God, you cannot inherit any else. And that was her awakening moment. And then she said, and she started thinking, if I'm a child of God, if I cannot inherit any else, then there is an essence, there's a wholeness in me that is original. And I need to go back to that essence. And that is how Unity started. She started gathering people, you know, not even, you know, in a space, in her own home, and praying with people, are failing her, are failing brothers. And this is what we are continuing. I think Thulani is doing that so beautifully, you know, bringing us back to our original always. So this is just a welcoming one, just to let you know where we're coming from. So we are going to request Thulani to give us an opening prayer, because we are a church, we are in ministry, and after the prayer, Karen will say a few words on the thought, if you want to, and then we'll start the workshop. But then I also need to apologize that we started 30 minutes late, and to appreciate, you know, the rest of the 10 hours. So forgive us. That's one of our beginning as a committee. Yes, thank you.
I'm going to invite each of you to just take a moment, just take a breath, just breathe. Let's just breathe. We're here, our blood runs through our veins, our heart is beating. Let's just breathe. If you want to, you can close your eyes. And so just giving thanks for this day now that God has made. We are rejoicing and we're glad in it. We're grateful today for the blood that runs warm through our veins. We're grateful for the breath that we have. We're grateful that we are alive and present in this very moment. We surrender everything to God in this moment. And we're trusting that everything that unfolds for the good of all. In this moment, as we sit here, we are feeling into the presence of healing and transformation. We're feeling into the vibration of remembering our wholeness as divine children of the Most High God. And so we just simply get out of our own way and we allow God to show up as only God can. We give thanks for this space. We give thanks for Rev Thulani. We give thanks for the generosity of her spirit. We're knowing that everything that unfolds today unfolds perfectly, and that when we leave here, we do not leave the same, that something would have transpired within our lives. We know that we're transmuted into the very life of God as God has so ordained it and established our lives long before we were birthed into this human incarnation. We say yes to the evolution of our soul's consciousness. We say yes to the evolution of that part of us that desires healing and wholeness. And we simply let it be. We give thanks knowing that this prayer that we've just offered cannot return to us void, but it can only do that which we have asked it to do. We just simply let it be, and we give thanks, and so it is.
And so it is.
Thank you. So we'll get into the workshop in just a bit. We'll hear from our brother, and then it would be great if we could just take a few moments to quickly go around and hear who's in the room and what you are curious about. What is it that brought you here today? We'll do that in just a moment. Yes.
Just a little bit about unity. I think the best way, seeing that we don't have a lot of time, is for me just to remind you about the 5 unity principles. And the 5 unity principle essentially is the foundation, the page out of which we as a church move from. So the first principle is that God is all there is. So we don't believe there's an other power. We believe that God is the presence whose center is everywhere and whose circumference is nowhere. That's the first principle. The second principle is that we as humans have that divinity, have that godliness. We cannot be outside that. That's the second principle of unity. The third principle is that our thoughts bring after their kind. So if your predominant thoughts are of illness, of lack, that's what will come out. That's what you'll experience. Therefore, as students of truth, we know when we want healing, our thoughts must be thoughts of healing. When we want prosperity, our thoughts must be of prosperity. So that's the third principle. Our thinking determines our experience. The fourth principle is that through prayer, through meditation, through affirmation, we align ourselves with truth. So that is where we apply the principles through prayer, through meditation, and through affirmation. And then the last principle, and it's my favorite, it says knowing the truth and not applying it is the same as not knowing the truth. So the challenge about that fifth principle is that whatever we learn, we must apply. So today we'll learn about healing. Our homework is to take what we learn and apply it in our own lives. Those are the 5 principles of unity. And I thought perhaps that would be a starting point for.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you. How about we'll start over here?
Yeah.
That's who you are, beautiful lady.
Yeah.
And a little bit about, just take a moment, and what brings you here? What are you curious about? What are you curious about?
Good morning. My name is Mbaidi Makalo. 3 years ago, I started an organization called Heal SA. And we offer free mental health support to those people who can afford to get mental health services. And I think I'm here so that I can understand and deepen my understanding around healing. I think as I delve deeper into this, I realized this is something I also am not getting. You know, I think there's help that I'm providing and supporting, but I also feel there could be something, and I don't know what that something is, and that's why I'm here today.
Thank you.
My name is Rato. I am here out of curiosity. I'm open to learning and what is going to be offered today. And I think, you know, you get to a point where you think you are healed, but something happens and it triggers you and you realize that maybe not. So I think I'm here so that I can be empowered to heal myself and also to become healing. Thank you. We'll go to young ladies in that. Thank you. I think this is beautiful. Thank you. And what are you curious about today?
I am here to meet the people themselves to. I'm searching for truth about myself. About the energy, the strength that I have, especially regarding health. Because we have devoted too much to medication, herbs, thinking that they benefit us. I have taken those things for too many years now. I want to know how to do that.
Imagine.
So that it me that those that are saying properly to stay or come so that they can hear.
Oh, okay. I understand. Do you then have a microphone?
Yes, but that's,
In the meantime, so just we've got that.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, so you want people to stick
Forward,
forward.
yes.
Imagine.
I'm sorry. You
Sorry.
yes, if you would
Yes.
just share. Just, and we'll do this very quickly.
Yes.
Okay.
Imagine.
Slow. I'm Neil Saga. And I think I'm also just here out of curiosity, the space that I work in, I work with young people with disadvantaged and part of the work that we do is try and just, once the program ends, is that we want our young people to come out of the program having changed the way that they think, and having gone past, right, and overcome the challenges that they face as young people. So I think I'm really here to find out more, gain a better understanding on how to assist the young people that I work with when it comes to just overcoming the traumas that they face in their lives. And I think I'm also here for myself. If you pass some of the things that should be, so to find healing for myself, but also find to gain the right knowledge and information and the know-how on how to assist the young people that I. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Yeah. Am I specific? Can I just heal also from this? My skin inside. With the silent in your front. I'm here to learn how to heal myself, heal my family. I sense that a lot of arguments that we grew up in, conflicts that we grew up in, emanated from previous generations and passed on. And it's only if
You want to break the cycle, something that's been really just. And I'm going to.
I'm sorry.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Daisy Srivedi. And I was invited by my executive assistant, since I was Daisy, she knew me. And I had an info called Huruma NPC, which is about compassion. That's what we word. So we deal with issues of GBV and vulnerability. And you know, in the country, what is happening? There's so much violence, and which leads to trauma issues in the people that we interact with. And you want to make a difference. And the only way you can do that is to come to these type of gatherings, especially when almost Hello, everyone. My name is William Silo. I'm the founder of an NPO in Cape Town, Kaibicha. The name of the organization is ISO Care Society. Meaning that we stand outside within the community. This one is an act. So we stand outside and see what you can do to individual, to family, to community. I think that is what communities and to save our communities. I'm here because we run on some year to planning. So I'm here to learn. As a founder of this huge organization that is dealing with trauma, dealing with learners, dealing with unemployed youth, dealing with child negative families, dealing with elderly, dealing with our single parents, dealing with also teachers that are working with learners that are also dealing with their traumas. Facing with these individuals every day, even myself, having children, sometimes you will think that when you are a parent, you want your child to be like you, but those are the other traumas that we need to deal with, because you cannot think of someone that can be like you. How do you deal with that trauma? How do you help yourself to make sure that at the end of the day, if my child is my child, let me assist my child to be a better person in life, not to think my child can be like me. How do you deal with it? How do you deal with our marriages? How do you deal with our communities that are not just societies that are filled with murders, societies that are full with the petty crimes? How do you deal with that? I'm here to learn and go back to Cape, because our organization is working in Eastern Cape, is working in Cape Town, is also having new offices in Gauteng. And then how do I pass this information to us so that we are healing somebody?
Good morning, everyone. My name is Octavia. I'm born and raised in Pittsburgh, and I'm with Cape Town about 4 years ago. I work very closely with Mama Vivian and the Care Society. I'm a student of the mind, psychotherapist by profession, Chief Inspiration Officer of my own organization called Ocean Rise, where we focus on personal development and we run transformational workshops. Something else I'm extremely passionate about is we have a deep focus on period poverty. So through the Care Society, we have a project called VPADS, and we are working towards having the most biodegradable and the most affordable sanitary pads for young women and girls in our society. As we all know, the conversation of period poverty and how many young girls miss school due to the fact that they don't have sanitary pads to go to school. So I'm a student of mine. I'm simply here to learn. Being invited by beautiful Mukadi that represents healing. She is a container for healing. And yes, Dr. Thulani's been on my vision board. I received a book as a gift about 3 months ago. And yes, when I got the invitation, I went into my book library and was no way. In the power of God, and when we trust in God, be God. So
Yes,
I'm looking forward to seeing what God's plan is for me today. I know that I don't know.
Yeah.
So thank you.
How do I go? Good morning, everyone. I'm Dineo Mufasi, the teacher to Light member, for over 5 years now. And, I feel like what I know is that, we are all healers because God is a healer. And I've always availed myself to be a channel of healing. And it's always, you know, and no matter how hard I would resist it, I am drawn, I am called for that work. So I think right now, for the past, let's say 2 months, I have been volunteering at a home called Tabita in the Val. It's a home for the, you know, I really question of the word mentally challenged, the world for society challenged. People that are maybe have autism, people have fits, people have health issues, people have nowhere to go. So I think it's basically human challenged people where they do not fit into the society that they come in. But also, I've also learned that they are put into these spaces, but they are left alone, you know, and I was called in by God to come and just give them the love that they needed. So, let's say through Unity Center of Love and Light Teachings, we have the 12 purpose that we learn, learn about every single month. So in the month of February, for instance, it was the month of love. So I took all the teachings we were taught here and I took them to the space. So that's what I do every week. So this month is March, doing strength. But you know, through that, you could see that these people have so much to give, but they're not given the space to give. So I think the most important thing for me is to be that space, is to be that person that allows others to, you know, to take out what is in them. So we pray for each other. We read the word of God. I mean, just to share, there's one woman who cannot speak with her mouth, but she can recite the Bible with everything. So all you need is somebody to just listen to her. And that I was the person to do that. I was like, guys, please listen to each other. Give yourself that space. Give yourself those prayers. They would ask me to pray for them because they have, you know, this one says she's been fitting for the last, since she was 5 and she can't handle it anymore. Just to put that, to put that affirmation to say, I am healed. This no longer has a hold of me. I am free. I'm a child of God. So it's to take the Unity teachings into the world is absolutely very important. That's who I am. That's what I do. And just to share, I am moving to Cape Town next month. So I would love to today as So yeah, so basically to say I'm available to whoever would you know, have me to volunteer to work with people. I'm a loving support. Yeah. I've recently relocated to Joburg. I was speaking to Barry on Tuesday, and Mama, I think you would relate because you probably still get as well. Joburg people, when they greet, they like something like that. And then you're like,
Yes.
they don't wait, they don't wait for you to answer.
Yeah.
And when I, when someone asks you time, you wait for them to respond. So someone asked me on Tuesday. And I felt it. Oh, wow. So they asked how am I doing, and I could feel the tears welling up. And recently, my husband got hit by fire, literally lost everything that I had. I found myself without a job. And I thought it was okay until they asked me on Tuesday, how are you doing?
Got you. Yes.
I got you. We see you.
My name is Vito Melo. I'm a community member. What am I here for today? I believe that I believe that I and mine is to realize that, is to express that, is to manifest that. So this is part of that journey to delay, to reach in into who I am, which is health and wholeness. Yeah, it's part of that journey of really getting in touch with who I am and embodying the health and wholeness.
Thank you. My name is Courtney Mogolfin. I think what attracted me one was that I have not been to church for some time. Some people are writing for the world. And I told them, I'm gonna come anymore. So I was okay, I found there. That's one. Two, I saw there being some cover and I asked myself, what does she get the name for? This is the Canadian name that says you will get and take what is yours. But now what is she all about? The third one, I also realized we work a lot with community. I work for United Way South Africa. You might know United Way over. And I'm also excited to hear all the people who are working with the community. And for me, it was like my first community. I've got all the contacts. So when I leave here, Mama, I'm living with so many contacts. Yeah, so I'm very excited about that. And I also came with a friend. We have seen each other for some time. And also, you know, we work with people who also need healing. We also need love. So, you know, when I also need that. You know, we forget about ourselves and we care for everyone, but we also need that heart and that love. So I'm here for that. Thank you so much. Hello, everyone. My name is Angelica Kashele. I'm from Joburg. I was invited by my friend Queen. I'm here to understand about healing, you know, forgiveness, about past injustices, the power of meditation, how to connect with the high peak.
Everybody has theirs.
And my name is from South Africa.
I think Baraki has said it all, but I'll just add on what I do on the side. I'm an academic working at UNISA, and I'm currently embarking on the research that looks at experiences of girls who are living in childcare households. Obviously, after, talking to them, they all need healing. But what I've experienced while I was talking to them was that I also need healing. And besides needing healing, I also realized that from each and every one of them, there is something for me that I can relate to. And thereafter, I'm calling Paddy and say, "Oh, Paddy, you know me. Today I was talking to someone who was telling me about ABCD, and I would cry, after conducting the research, because when I listen to their individual stories, I just pretend to be a hero, and yet most of the things that they are experiencing are hurting. I also worked, I'm a soldier by the way, Air Force, as I said. And I also worked with the youth there under the program entitled National Youth Service. And we were mainly workshopping youth. And there is so much that the youth in this country don't know. They are unemployable. And what did we do when we were running the workshops? On the last day of the workshop, in the evening, we just switch off the light and say, can anyone talk about anything? And it was so scary that people were just hearing these pages. And some of them would say, I haven't spoke about this for the entire rest for as long as I've been existing. For as long as I've been existing. I'll make an example. For instance, we have about 1,000 youth in that particular room. And we find that about 80% of the girls that are there would all share stories on rape in different ways. I don't want to press you, but I'll just give an example. Some of them would say, I'm at a varsity, and I remember going out with my friends for some drinks. And the last time I could remember was when I was there. But after 3 days, I would find myself lying in the field. But what would stress them mainly was the fact that they actually wanted to know how many guys raped them. But the sad part of it, what I'm going to say is very intense, so just prepare yourself silent. But the sad part of it was that there is this trade that is called Savannah. And I don't know why that one in particular. So the perpetrators would actually put whatever inside the Savannah bottle. And then they would take that Savannah bottle and shove it there after the rape area. So now we find that this particular individual took something that was laced on her drink, but also something that was shoved there. And as a result, it was a chaos. So I was just dealing with different people with different issues. But the impact of the workshop was that some of the guys would confess that, of course, I didn't know that, this is what rape can do to all these girls, because they're afraid girls done this and this and this. And they would ask, they would apologize on behalf of what they've done. Others, yes, okay, that's enough for now. But basically what I'm saying is that the youth in the country is going through a lot. And we are here, and we should also invite more people to just come and do something. Yeah, that's it.
I just one other things online.
And the member of the citizens of London that since 2019. Reason why I'm here is I know how trauma can dictate how we perceive the world, make decisions. So I just wanted to check, well, to hear, to see what is it that is there that might need some healing, that might need my attention, so that all of my thoughts and actions come from a healed space, that I make right action, right thoughts. Thank you. That's it.
Well, introductions, would you like to share something about yourself? What you're curious about? What you're curious about? Why are you here today?
I think you muted, person.
Unmute yourself.
Okay, hi, good morning, everyone, and can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, awesome. Great, thank you so much. I was just so excited when I saw the flyer about the workshop, and one thing in particular, well, before I get to today, perhaps, is that I am a student, have been a student and a founding student of Unity, as the first student that met Rev when she came back from the US, and and I studied with her as the only student for 2 years, and the community, you know, grew to what we have today. And I keep I am a living disciple of what I have learned at Unity, and it reached me at a time, as Rev was saying earlier on, when church didn't do it anymore for me, and I listened to her on radio, and I will never forget that moment, that encounter, and it still continues to reverberate within me. And for today, I was struck on the flyer, particularly by the healing circles, because I recently completed my PhD, and I was looking at how African-centered psychology scholars conceptualize Black psychological empowerment. And the thinking behind that being, you know, thinking about how what I refer to as the oppressive trinity of slavery, colonization, and apartheid, the impact that it has had on the psychological life of African descendants globally, and how there just has not been any much conversation about that throughout my studies in psychology, and how psychology just, you know, treats Black people as though we don't exist, or just a lighter pigment of Euro-American psychology, and how that experience, even though it's much larger than, for example, the Holocaust, you know, the only acronym known in psychology is PTSD. So I was quite, you know, inspired when I was doing my reading for my thesis with the concept of post-slavery traumatic disorder, and it remains outside of the center of psychology and society as such. And I also read about the healing circles and gatherings, but I have not found anything about it in South Africa. So I'm quite curious to hear how it operates, and your experience, and perhaps what it looks like here, or could look like here, or where to connect with that, because I think that is a trauma that continues to reverberate in the collective psyche, and yet it remains a silent trauma, and life just had to continue, and we just have to, you know, move on, as people would say. So yeah, I think that in a nutshell is my curiosity. So thank you.
Thank you.
My neighbor is on as well.
Okay, I put someone else online.
It's my neighbor, Mr. Madi.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
You must
Maybe.
unmute yourself.
Yes, sir.
Are you well, sir?
I'm blessed, and how are you?
All is well.
And how's everyone? Thank you very much.
Do you want to do a short intro and your interest in being in the workshop today?
Okay. I was just listening to the doctor that just got offline. And first and foremost, I greet you all in the wonderful name of the Most High. And as I was listening to the introductions and so on, and I was really, what caught my attention was the principles of unity. And for me, what resonates with me mostly is number 3 and number 5, that Mr. Debele was reciting. What to think is what to bring back to yourself, because with everything that's happening around us, we are prone to have a lot of negative thoughts, which then exacerbates the problem, because then we end up in this deep trench of negativity, especially with everything that surrounds us in personal spaces, as well as I think in our country as things are happening right at the moment. And this is also post the pandemic that we've all just gone through, as well as number 5. And knowing the truth and not applying it is the same as not knowing the truth at all. And we always know the truth and we never apply it the way we're supposed to. And as I was going through the flyer and trying to get more information on that, and well, I think we all go through some trauma of some sort. I think personally, we look at trauma as something that is major, that will maim you as a human being, or that will impact on you, and so on. But some of the things, I think for us that went through the pandemic, that was hit hard by the pandemic through retrenchments and so on, that is trauma on its own. And I say that because I'm part of the statistic of that. And more so, if you are a male, it hits you harder than it hits females, because you are the head of the household and everyone looks up to you to provide. So when you go through that, that's why in my readings, it says the statistics for suicides is higher in males than it is in females, because of the environment around us, the society and expectations that is upon our shoulders as males as well. So I am here to learn how to circumvent that. Yes, I am coming out of that doldrum of, the retrenchment and so on, slowly but surely. God has opened up the path to go back to work, and glory to him for that. But the struggle continues in that the recovery is even more so than what we went through. So I am one that says I'd like to share what I learn from people, and I share a lot with Mr. Tebele. We speak quite a lot, and I learn a lot from him. And I like to take that knowledge and pass it on to my brothers out there to say, this is how we can get out of this trauma that we went through in the last few years, because there's still a few of my colleagues that haven't gone back into the workspace, and they need the help. And if you do not have anyone that supports you, like Mr. Tebele supported me in my space, I need to give it to someone else. My belief is that pay it forward so that the next person becomes better. So that's why I'm here to learn from Unity. Thank you for the opportunity.
I would like to say something. One more person, and then I'm introduce
Yeah, good morning, everyone, and I'm sorry I'm a bit late, and I need to attend to some other issues. And my name is Candy Bega, and the reason why I'm here is that one of my daughters experienced severe trauma a few years ago, and she was attending some counseling, but the psychologist concerned felt that she wasn't strong enough or wasn't ready for her, to really the experience. And as a result, it wasn't addressed. And recently, somebody said something to her,
and it triggered, that negative experience that she had gone through. And unfortunately, she then landed up again in a mental institution. And that indicated to us, that the trauma was never dealt with. And for as long as she hasn't healed, people will be saying things to her, or she will be saying something that would actually trigger, what was not resolved. So I'm just hoping that, because I'm supporting her a lot, I might also get some tools to share with her, so that she can apply to a situation and get some help. Thank you.
I think I will thank you everyone for sharing. Thank you so much. We are all one, and we are interconnected with one. So your pain is my pain. And your healing is my healing. So that is why we are here, because individual healing is actually collective healing. So without any further ado, let me just introduce Dr. Thulani. I will just introduce her briefly from what I have here. She's Thulani Dimasei. Dr. Thulani is the founder and Chief Impact Officer of the Sankofi Institute for Collective Wellbeing. She's got 27 years in long-term recovery from substance abuse. Thulani is a living statement, a living testament to the transformative power of resilience and healing. In 2023, Dr. Thulani released a book entitled An Invitation to Contemplative Leadership. I think that is the name that you gave. That is what it was in your vision board. That's something. You're the only one who's got it so far. Has anyone forgot to? No. We should get it in our library. It is. Okay, the book is an invitation to contemplative leadership, which we so needed this time, which explores how reflective practices sustain leadership during times of change and uncertainty. So, can you just give love, give us some love?
Thank you. I'm actually going to stand up. Thank you. I don't know if I need that or not.
It's up to you. Kids, we did.
Okay, we'll see if folks can hear. Thank you all so much for.
Yeah, because the games.
Thank you for being here. I'm just going to stand up because my energy was better when I'm standing. So in the interest of you, so it was so beautiful to go through this process. I know it took time, but it helped me to understand who's in the room. And it also, so I'm actually going to change my presentation entirely based on what I've heard from you. And then also you have a sense of who's here. So after we are done, you can connect with people because there are many opportunities for us to network and connect with each other. Okay, Queen, Sister Queen back there, she's like, well, who is this person who named her organization Sankofa? Like, that's West African. So my lineage is from Ghana, West Africa. And it was through my time in Ghana last year that I felt this, I felt that Sankofa was being birthed within my own spirit. I knew that I wanted to do something around healing and transformation on a deeper level that focused more so on people of color. I've been doing this work for over 10 years, specifically around trauma recovery and addiction back home, but it's not a meeting from Boston, Massachusetts, is where I'm from, but it was not through the lens of racial equity. And we'll get into that in a little bit in terms of why our interventions need to be different. We cannot apply a one-size-fits-all approach to trauma recovery and healing. It's very, very specific to culture and to the experiences of people in their culture. As Rev Thulani said, I am a person in long-term recovery myself. Back in '93, I was hit by a car and both of my legs were broken. I was in a coma for a period of time. I had head injury. And so I have a rod in this leg, and what happened is the doctors gave me Oxy. Anybody familiar with oxycodone? Okay. So the doctors gave me Oxy and another medication called Klonopin, which is in a class of medications called benzodiazepines. In the States, they are extremely popular. They're sold on the streets, but I didn't know how addictive they were. And so I became addicted to the medications for 5 years. And then it took 2 years for me to completely recover. And so as part of my own recovery process, this is why I do this work. But even before my car accident, so I was sharing with Rev Thulani, I come from 2 generations on both my mother's side and my father's side. There are 4 generations of people who suffered from alcoholism on my mother's side and on my father's side. My great-grandmother was an alcoholic, and my grandfather, who was a bishop of the church, was an alcoholic as well. And so oftentimes we treat the alcoholism without treating the trauma. And if we treat the alcoholism or the addiction or the anxiety or the panic attacks or even the depression without addressing the trauma, we're actually missing an opportunity for deeper healing. So what I'm going to do, because I have a very good sense as to who's here and why you're here, I'm actually not going to go into the technical aspects of what is trauma and all of that. I'm actually going to bypass all of that and going to focus on healing. And what I'm going to invite you to do in this moment with me is I would like to invite you to imagine yourself as a metaphysician, as the healer, because many of you said that you are here to heal yourself, but you're also here to support others in their healing. So there's a part of you that is a healer. There's a part of you that is a metaphysician already. But what we are in need of are tools so that we can be effective. There's also a part of you that has never been harmed, that has never been wounded, that has never known trauma or pain. There's a part of you that is completely whole, healthy, and complete. And that is the part of you that I want to speak to right now. And if you want to take notes, that's perfectly fine. I'm actually going to share my notes with everybody. Everything that I share, I will provide to you if you need your contact information. Okay. The reason why this conversation is so important in this moment is because South Africa itself is on the precipice of change. It's a country that's becoming and being at the same time. It's on the threshold of transformation. This is a part of my talk tomorrow. I didn't intend to do this, but based on who's here, each of you are catalysts of healing and transformation. So my sense is that regardless of where you live in South Africa, if you're in Cape Town, then you are a catalyst for change and transformation in Cape Town. If you come from the Eastern region, then you are a catalyst of change and transformation in that region. And so what I'm imagining right now, and I hope you see this in this room, that each of you are being deployed in different areas to help to create healing. But it's a different type of healing. It's not a traditional medical model of healing. So we're going to focus more so on healing right now. We're also going to we're going to incorporate metaphysics and science. And we're also going to look at the importance of what we don't talk enough about, especially in communities of color, Black communities, African communities, is the importance of neuroscience. And we're going to talk about neuroscience as well, because we're missing an incredible opportunity for healing by not addressing the science. So first of all, as many of you know, trauma shows up in different ways, right? So for me, before the age of 14 years old, I witnessed 4 more murders. Okay, so I'm going to school every day, not knowing that I'm traumatized. The teachers don't know that I'm traumatized. They just think that I can't learn. And so look at the trajectory here. I witnessed 4 murders before the age of 14 years old. I go to school traumatized, not knowing that I'm traumatized, and the teachers don't know that I'm traumatized. I am not performing well academically, so then I get put into special education classes. I get put in special education classes, and then the teachers don't think that I have the potential to go to college. And then what do? They say, well, you need to go to community college because we don't see you going into a particular university. So my point here is that if we don't address the trauma, it changes the total landscape of our lives. And then our lives are then subjected to teachers and educators and people in the community who don't even know that we're traumatized. Right? I would not have a doctorate today if I were not healed. I would not be here with you today if I listened to the doctor, because I was admitted at least 4 times into a psychiatric hospital. Okay, so I'm just being completely honest with you because I want you to know who's standing before you. Okay, and so a psychiatrist, excuse me, said to me that this is who you are, that you will suffer from depression more than likely for the rest of your life. Okay, so my transformation and my healing actually came through the teachings of unity and new thought, along with some other things that we're going to talk about. Okay, so as you're listening to these words that are coming forward, see yourself both as healer and see yourself both as the person who needs healing. The person that's the healer is the person that's going to go in the community and affect change. When Queen talked about Sankofa is literally about turning backwards, learning from our past, grabbing the wisdom from our past, bringing it forward into the present moment. Okay. We all get that? Okay. Okay, so let's talk about trauma. Rather than focusing on all of the symptoms of trauma, there's one thing that I'm going to focus on, and that is the feeling of separation. Okay. So it shows up as anxiety, it shows up as depression, it shows up as suicidality, it shows up as different things. At its very heart, there is a sense of separation that one feels from themselves and from the world. Okay. You have young people who turn to marijuana or drugs or alcohol because there is a feeling of separation that they're experiencing. They do not have a way of dealing with their environment. They cannot adapt to their environment. This is particularly the case for individuals who are highly sensitive. Some of us come into the world with a heightened sense of sensitivity. We feel things deeply. When things are going on in the world, they feel it very deeply. Young people feel this very deeply. In the States, we refer to them as crystal children. In my age, we refer to them as indigos. Yeah. Okay. So children who come into this world with a higher level of insightfulness, but they can't process it because they don't have the vocabulary. So it's important that we understand that at the very heart of trauma is this dynamic where there is this feeling of complete separation, even from the divine, even from God. And so when you walk in the world feeling this sense of separation, it's really hard, if not impossible, for a person to heal. So typically in our culture, it doesn't matter where we are in our culture. It could be the Western culture, it could be here. It doesn't matter where we are. There is a propensity for people to address trauma from a medicalized model. And what I mean by that, by medicalized model, is that we're treating the symptoms of trauma. So as long as we're treating the symptoms of trauma, I promise you that a person will never heal. So it's often viewed as a brain disease. There are organic changes that does happen in the brain, and we can't deny that. That's science. We know that the brain looks very different for an individual who has been traumatized. We treat it as a biological or a neurological issue. We treat the symptoms and not the whole person. And what I mean by that is, I'm going to give you some Klonopin, I'm going to give you some Ativan or some Xanax, and medication does have its place. It does have its place, but it's often abused, and certain medications actually alter the brain chemistry, right? And so these are some of the things that we want to keep in mind. It's corrective and not remedial. And remedial meaning that it's not preventative. We're only helping you after the fact, right? And then there's typically this one size fit all. So let's look at the holistic and integrated model. I see you as mind, body, and spirit. It is the pathway of our ancestors before we were colonized. That we are mind, body, and spirit. When the mind is imbalanced, everything else is imbalanced. When our spiritual selves when we're experiencing a sense of separation, everything else becomes imbalanced. When we are not physically well, everything else is imbalanced. So for those of you who are working within NGOs, I was at a place in Cape Town called Bishop Lavis at a high school. And interestingly, in my mind, I was literally thinking about the children who are living in informal settlements. I hope that's not an offensive term. Okay. And I actually wondered, how did they take care of themselves during that time of the month? I literally thought about that and wondered, that in and of itself is a trauma.
Yeah.
So we often think of trauma as these big things that happen. Trauma is not having food in the morning to feed myself. Trauma is not having sanitary napkins because I don't have the resources to provide for myself. That's a trauma. Not having clean clothes to put on, that is a trauma. Right, so these are some of the things, because again, we think of it, like I shared about the violence. I am also a person, I don't use the word victim, I am also a survivor of sexual violence. So because of the neighborhood that I lived in, I was in foster care for many years, because my mother wasn't in a position to take care of me, right? She had already given, I was her fourth child by the time she was 21. And my brother, my oldest brother, was a result of my mother being raped when he was 13 in South Carolina. This isn't uncommon. This is an uncommon thing. In fact, sexually violated by a family member. That is not uncommon, right? And so this is the reality of many people's lives. I come from the US, I realize that my experience is different, but it's not entirely different from yours or the people that live here. It's not entirely different. Okay, so if you can go to the next. So we're going to just look at some healing. Go to the next one. So holistic wellness means nurturing your mind, body, and spirit, for they are all interconnected in your journey towards wholeness. We want to remember that. We want to always remember that. We cannot nurture one part of ourselves without nurturing the other parts. This is one of my favorite quotes by Ernest Holmes. Actually, I'm going to ask Rev Thulani if she can read the quote for us.
Okay, yes. Ernest Holmes is that I just want to give a little background about Ernest Holmes' Science of Mind. Right? Science of Mind is one of the pioneers of New Thought and healing. So this is in one of his books.
Yeah.
What book is that?
It's the Science of
The
Mind.
Science of Mind, okay. We have within us a power that is greater than anything we shall ever contact in the out. A power that can overcome every obstacle in our life and set us safe, satisfied, and in peace, healed and prosperous in a new life and in a new life.
So, Science of Mind, the church that I belong to is called the Agape International Spiritual Center. It means in Los Angeles.
And it is that.
And I've got some Michael Bernard and his wife Vicky Byers.
Wow.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah. And we all agree with it.
Oh, yeah.
Welcome home.
Wow. Okay.
Wow.
Okay, so, wow. Okay, this is beautiful to know. So my introduction into Science of Mind was through the Agape International Spiritual Center. And what would happen is I would just fly out to Los Angeles a few times every month, just go. And eventually I packed up my stuff. I was invited to serve in the peace ministry at Agape. And I packed up my stuff. I had no idea where I was going to go, where I was going to live when I moved to California. And it so happened that my prayer partner from Agape invited me to stay at their home. And that's how I was able to be in service. Now we have 3 services on Sundays. And I stayed in the service, and I stayed there. I wouldn't even leave. Typically they make you leave and come back. I said, no, I'm from Boston. I said, I'm here and I need to stay here. And so over time, I felt a transformation and healing happening in my life. And we're going to talk about that in just a minute. And then we'll get into some of the science part. The Science of Mind teaches us, it's not only that my thoughts create my reality, it's so deeper than that. But it is, who am I becoming? And through the life visioning process, who's familiar with the life visioning? Oh, I love you. So imagine, and some of you talked about, I want to focus on healing myself. Okay. So I want you to bring your awareness for just a moment into your body. And so we know that in this moment that we are in a safe space. We know in this moment that we are whole, that we are complete, that we are divine. And so we focus our attention in our mind, our body, and our spirit on the vibrational quality of healing. What is the vibrational quality of healing? What does it feel like in the body? What does it feel like in the mind? What does it feel like in your spirit? What is the vibrational quality of healing? You can open your eyes. And so the first question is that we ask ourselves, what is the vibrational quality of healing? What does healing feel like on a deeper level? What does it truly feel like? And what we begin to do every day as a part of our spiritual practice is we go into that space, that feeling tone, if you will, of healing. And over time, what happens is that that feeling tone of healing begins to override the feeling of trauma, of stress, of sadness, of negativity, of depression. So let's now connect the spirit and the mind, okay? So that we can have some congruence. There's a field called neuroscience. Who's familiar with neuroscience? Okay. So brain chemicals or neurons that fire together, wire together, okay? So if you have people that you're working with who are struggling with anxiety, let's say, and they're having panic attacks. Every time they have a panic attack, they're firing certain neurons in their brains. And every time they fire those neurons in their brain, it reinforces the condition of anxiety. Every time we fire the neurons or the feeling tone of depression or sadness, every time it becomes stronger. And it's like, imagine if you're driving on let's say a dirt road, and you keep driving on that dirt road, at some point, there are grooves that start to go deeper into the dirt. And now you see the tire tracks on the dirt, right? That's what happens in our brain. We have something called neural pathways in our brain. And the neural pathways are conditioned. So you have individuals who are feeling hopeless. They're feeling anxiety, they're feeling depression. That becomes their feeling tone every day because the brain remembers that feeling. And so the way that we override that feeling, I'm going to feel into the feelings of healing. I'm going to feel into the feelings of wholeness. Every day, we do it every day as a part of our practice every day, like brushing your teeth, taking a bath or shower every day. And at a certain point, you begin to feel different. Now, years ago, how many of you familiar with Tony Robbins? So, because of my own trauma, I developed a condition called fibromyalgia. And fibromyalgia, for those of you who are not familiar with it, is an autoimmune. It was considered back in the 90s to be an autoimmune condition. So back then I had locks in my hair, and my fibromyalgia, my pain, because I had widespread pain all over my body, I required hospitalization. I couldn't bathe myself. I couldn't wash my own hair. I couldn't cook for myself. My health had deteriorated. To walk from my house just to the mailbox, I was winded because I was so ill. And at that time, there was no cure for fibromyalgia. A friend at the time, I wasn't working. In the States, we have something called Social Security. Okay? So I wasn't able to work at that time. And so I was put on Social Security. So that means my finances were very limited. But a friend treated me, he gifted me, I should say, to a trip to Florida, which changed my life as well. And that's where I was able to meet Tony Robbins. And the Tony Robbins Foundation at that time was giving people scholarships to go to this program, because back then I want to say it was maybe $3,000 or $4,000. I could not afford that. Tony Robbins knows Michael Beckwith. In fact, Tony Robbins and Reverend Michael are very close, and they have a deep appreciation for each other, which is such a blessing. And so what I learned to do, it started out with taking very cold showers and doing affirmations. So mind you, I'm ill, my body, I'm in an arthritic stage. Yeah? So I'm in the shower, cold shower. I'm a divine child of God. Healing goes through every vessel, every blood vessel in my body. Every atom molecule in my body is completely cold, healed, and corrected. And so as the water, the cold water, because cold water actually helps to counteract the anxiety and depression, just so you know. So if you have a client or somebody that you're working with, they're experiencing anxiety, sometimes if they even dunk their head in cold water, it actually helps to shift how they're feeling, because it down-regulates the cortisol in their bodies. Okay. So for me, it was the cold showers, it was the affirmative prayer to help shift that feeling. Does that make sense? Yes. Okay. So then over time, your body begins to become acclimated to the feeling of joy, to the feeling of healing, to the feeling of prosperity, to the feeling of oneness. after a while, we begin to recognize that we are not separated. That even though we've gone through trauma and we've had these certain experiences, that the feeling of separation is an illusion, that it doesn't exist, that, oh my gosh, I am one with the divine, I am one with life, that I'm one with this universal presence that is the divine, that is God. And then we begin to recognize that God didn't cause, this wasn't like something because God hates me, right? And so my point here is that over time, yep, you can go to the next one. Over time, we begin to develop these pathways to healing, and it's going to look different for each of us. Because I am a person, so before I became ill, I worked a lot. Like, I love working. I worked 7 days a week. I owned a spa back then, and so I worked 7 days a week, 14, 16 hours a day. And even though my doctor said that it was the stress that created the fibromyalgia, I know that it was trauma. I know that it was trauma. So I want to share with you some pathways to healing trauma. We cannot heal trauma from doing one thing. I want to make that very clear. Okay? We have to take a holistic and a multifaceted approach to healing. This is really important that we get this. Nutrition, people don't think about food, right? As a person that was in recovery myself, food was my saving grace. I had to learn how to nourish myself. Okay, so we'll talk about that. We'll talk about exercise, movement, positive psychology, and all of that. We'll get to all of that in just a moment. But the key thing, beloved, the key thing is to reunite ourselves with spirit. To reunite ourselves with the divine. However you conceptualize the divine to be. The first step towards healing trauma is to reunite ourselves with the divine. I am one with the divine. I am one with God. I am not separated from this presence. In fact, this presence is me, as me, and it shows up through me. In fact, I am the physical manifestation of spirit itself. When you share that with your young people, when you share with your young people that they are divine, that they are a divine emanation of pure spirit, that in and of itself begins the healing process. Okay, we talk about individual and collective trauma. By healing the individual, then we help to heal the community. Was it you, dear heart, that was talking about the generations, intergenerational trauma? Somebody mentioned intergenerational trauma. I was sitting with one of my mentors in Ghana last year, and this is why I do this work. I wanted to just say this. He said to me, his name is Reverend John Nkumu. He said, if we address our trauma, if we focus on our healing, then we shift the future of generations yet unborn. That we can give birth to generations of children that are not burdened by the trauma that we've experienced. It doesn't mean that the generations that will come before us will not have trauma, but it means that they will have the tools. It means that they will have the resilience and the fortitude to be able to navigate. But it also means, on a deeper biological level, on a soul level, that we would have given birth to children that don't inherit the DNA of trauma, that don't inherit the DNA of depression. You see, and so if we can say unapologetically, if we can say that trauma ends with my generation. It ends with me, that I am not going to perpetuate this in my family. Then what we can do is we begin to give form and shape to generations that will come into the world as being the divine, beautiful light that they are. And so there is an emerging science called epigenetics. And epigenetics tells us that we're not destined by our genes. So even though I know that I have a background of alcoholism in my family, my grandfather, bless his heart, he would drink constantly. And he was a bishop, he was a reverend in a Baptist church, and then he would go to church on Sunday and preach the word. But my grandfather, I didn't know, he suffered trauma. He suffered trauma. We didn't know why he was so abusive. I remember as a child, he was very big. He picked me up from my neck, at my neck, picked me up, threw me against the wall, and I fell to the floor and gave me the worst beating that I've ever had in my life. It wasn't until I learned that my grandfather suffered from trauma. We didn't have a word for it. We didn't use that word in my family. In fact, if you use that word in my family, they probably try to cast the devil out of me. I come from a very devout, evangelical Christian family. So if you ever talked about depression, if you ever talked about feeling anxiety, I used to have epilepsy as a result of my car accident. And when I had seizures, they would cast the devil out of me because they would say the seizures were of Satan. Do you understand what I'm saying? But what happens is we perpetuate trauma from generation to generation to generation to generation. And many of us sit here with multiple traumas. You heard me say, I've witnessed violence. You've heard me say, I've been a survivor of sexual assault. You've heard me say these different things. It's very rare for a person to just have one trauma. But here's the thing, beloved. Our spiritual practice can heal all of that, right? So I'm going to share something with you. This literally just happened yesterday. A very dear sister friend of mine back in KZN is going through a divorce because of the circumstances by which she's getting a divorce. It's just very traumatic for her. She's been with her husband for 25 years. But what happens is each time she tells the story, every time we tell the same story, we're reinforcing our truth. And so in love, because I've been hearing this for a while now, so in love, I said to her, I said, in love, I want to stop you right now. And I want to invite you to tell a different story. Well, what other story is there to tell? God, I thank you for the 25 years that I've spent with this man. I thank you for the children that were manifested as a result of this marriage. God, I thank you that I have healthy children that I'm cultivating to be vibrant, loving souls in the world. I thank you that I have released this person so that he can be his greatest yet to be. I thank you that I am becoming a new creation in you. Okay, so do you feel the difference? Do you feel the difference? It's not that we deny the sad stuff. We don't want to bypass it because if we bypass it, it shows up somewhere else. So we don't want to do that. But after grieving for so long, we have to stand up and we have to say, hey, I'm ready to just shake this off. And I'm ready to heal. Okay, so I'm aware of the time and I'm gonna, again, I will share information with all of you. I'm gonna just move very quickly. Okay. Affirmative prayer. It starts with affirmative prayer. I accept my healing and wholeness in this very moment.
Yes.
I know that I am a divine child of God. I know that the divine expresses as me. And I know that there is a great work for me to do on this planet. Many of you have already talked about feeling led, feeling compelled even to do a great work. So affirmative prayer. The second is life visioning. What is Spirit's highest purpose for my life? Who would I be if I were not dealing with this trauma? Who would I be if I were not dealing with depression? What gifts, talents, and abilities would I release on this planet if I were not burdened by depression, if I were not burdened by trauma? So now we create a vision for our life. Now we have a vision. And we are entertaining that vision every day. We're feeling into that vision every day. Who am I becoming? Who would I be if I weren't here, if I didn't have this trauma? Let me become available, more available to Spirit, to God. Okay. Now let me get my body right. Okay, we know that movement is really important. We know that exercise is really important. So movement is a part of our healing process. Exercising, walking, lifting weights, doing something physical. We gotta do something physical. I'm going to illustrate something for you, and it's gonna look funny, but I'm gonna do it because I want you to see this. So when you have a person that's feeling very anxious or depressed, and they have sort of what actually Reverend Michael refers to as this coagulation of energy, sometimes we have to dispel that energy. And there have been times when I would literally lay on the floor and I would literally do this, right? It's a releasing, it's a dispelling, it's a letting go of energy. You will find that those of you who are working with individuals who are struggling with trauma or depression or what have you, violence, what have you, you may have to do this for yourself because there's something called vicarious trauma. And if you're working with individuals who are struggling with some of the things that you've talked about, that stuff is unconscionable. It's unconscionable. So then we must also protect ourselves. Okay? That's a whole nother workshop on how the healer protects him or herself. We talk about, no, we can stay here. Positive psychology. I'll send you know what, let me just send you more information about it. But the idea of positive psychology is how do I reframe something horrible that's happened to me? How can I reframe that and look at it in a different light? And somebody might say, how do you reframe rape? How do you reframe violence, gender-based violence? How could I possibly reframe that? How could I ever see that in a positive light? I am alive. I am here. I have compassion for others who've gone through this experience. And this is going to sound really, do you use the word whacked here? Whacked?
You can.
This is going to sound crazy. But how do I even extend forgiveness to my perpetrator? That's where the real work begins. It doesn't happen overnight. It doesn't even happen over a year. Sometimes it takes a long time. But I promise you that forgiveness is the pathway to healing. Forgiving our parents, forgiving our grandparents, forgiving anyone and everyone. And forgiveness is not saying, I forgive you and therefore I forget, or I forgive you and now you're off the hook. No. Forgiveness is saying that I am forgiving you because I am not allowing you to control me anymore. I am not allowing that thing to take control over me anymore. I'm taking back my power. mindfulness. We know through science that 10 to 15 minutes of mindfulness meditation every day changes the brain. Every day it changes the brain. Within 6 to 8 weeks, your brain now has changed organically. Let me talk with you a little bit about mindfulness. This is very important, especially for those of you who are working with individuals who struggle with depression, anxiety, fear, panic attacks. We have something in our brains called the limbic system. Within the limbic system, there's a little thing there called the amygdala. The amygdala gets activated when there is a trigger. It could be a smell in the air. It could be a perfume. It could be a person who reminds another person of a person who violated them. Whatever it is, it triggers the amygdala. And now the person this happens so often to the point where it feels like it's automatic and the person no longer has control. But it comes from the brain. Now, what mindfulness does, mindfulness strengthens what's called the prefrontal cortex of our brain. The more we meditate, the more we pray, the more we come into alignment with spirit, the more we strengthen this prefrontal cortex, the more we become congruent with heart, mind, and spirit. When we do that, it lessens the activation of the amygdala in the brain. And so now when the amygdala is relaxed, it's not as reactive. Why do I know this? Because I suffered from panic attacks for years. And what I know, how many of you are familiar with panic attacks or anxiety attacks? Okay, thank you for your honesty. And what I know is that the more a person is anxious, the more they are anxious. And so the anxiety has to get interrupted. And we interrupt the anxiety. I feel you, I see you, I experience you, because we're not pushing it away, okay? The more we push it away, the more it pushes back. It's like this. So we're never pushing anything away. I feel you, I see you. It's a welcome guest in my house. I welcome you as a guest in my house. What is it that you're trying to show me? What is it that you're trying to teach me right now? The more we surrender, the more we trust, the less power it has. And then at a certain point, it just moves on. Does that make sense? Yes. I want to pause. What thoughts or questions do you have right now? What's coming up for you?
So I just want to say this, sorry, I just want to address the anxiety part for me.
Yes.
So, yes, and you know, I just agreed. My anxiety just stems, obviously I think I do have old trauma that's been unhealed, that I think I thought was healed, but with time, it's gotten easier. But my work usually ends abruptly. So I'm a graphic designer. I design a flyer. But it's been such a difficult career that literally every time that there's a change in the economy, whatever, we are the first to let go. So, you know, just referring to the retrenchment thing. So my inability to provide for my family, I have 2 children, I'm a single mother, I have parents that I provide for, causes me great anxiety, especially at night. When I'm sleeping, it wakes me up in the middle of the night. So I heard you say that, you know, put cold water on the brain and it's kind of circumvents it or it soothes it out. But I just wanted to find out, you said that we should sort of interrupt it and it's happening. And when you say you are welcoming, I feel like I'm actually acknowledging it to stay, but I'd like to know, how do you completely heal panic? Because for me, it's circumstantial because of the fear of what am I going to feel, how am I going to get the next job, what is happening. I hold the whole family's sort of well-being within me, and I think that's what causes my trauma. Obviously there's like stuff like, emotional things I think I'm okay with, in terms of, we do the connection practice, we studied about, the triggers, the amygdala being something that, when something triggers it, but we use this practice and I use that. But how do you completely heal panic attacks? For me, that is a very,
Keep in mind, and actually, why don't you have a seat and hold on to the mic? Do you mind if we do a little something together? Come, bring your chair close if you need. Do you mind if we just do a little experiment together? Oh. Okay, so please stay. Please. So first of all, this is in service to everyone here. So it's not just you, it's in service to everyone. I'm gonna ask you some questions, and without thinking about them, I want you to just answer whatever comes to you. Take a breath. What are you most afraid of?
Poverty.
Thank you.
This is a sacred moment here, and you hit it, and I, okay. Say that, what are you most afraid of?
Poverty.
Okay, why are you afraid of poverty?
It's a lack. It's a space of lack that removes all sorts of, all ways of nutrition, of food, of health, of vitality.
Okay.
Everything.
Yeah, so when you're laying in bed at night, sometimes ruminating on these things and wondering if you're going to be able to provide for your family, the very heart of that is a fear of poverty. Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay. What else do you fear about yourself?
Just never actualizing or never living my full potential.
Yeah, and if you don't live your full potential, what happens?
I am not useful. I'm not, who am I? I have nothing to offer.
Yes, and if you have nothing to offer and you're not useful, what happens?
There's no reason to live.
And if there's no reason to live, then what happens?
And everybody else crumbles around.
Yes, and if everybody else crumbles around you, what happens?
Just no life, no happiness, no joy.
Do you believe that you are divine? Yes. Okay. And because you believe you are divine, do you also believe that you have been inculcated with talents, gifts, and abilities in this planet?
Yes, I do.
Okay. And you also believe that God is your source.
Yes, I do.
And you are a graphic designer, so you make your living creating things.
Yes, I do.
Okay. So do you believe within every fiber of your being that the divine that birthed these gifts, talents, and abilities within you would leave you destitute?
No.
Okay. And you also have a set of practices that support you. Right. So, so when the anxiety comes, the anxiety is not always a bad thing, by the way. It's not always a bad thing. Sometimes anxiety comes as a lesson, as a teacher for us, and we have to be able to discern what that is. Is it teaching us something, or are we running away from something? So my sense right now is that your anxiety is a result of you running away from something. That there is a part of you that knows that you want to be more in the world.
Yes.
That there's a part of you that wants to be fully expressed in the world and release your talents, gifts, and abilities.
Yeah.
When we limit our gifts and our talents and abilities, I promise you, we will feel anxiety. The reason for that is because our nature is to evolve. Our nature is to grow. Our nature is to unfold. That is how we were meant to be as evolutionary beings. That is the nature of humanity, beloved. But what happens is when we put ourselves in a box and we don't allow the fullness of ourselves to flourish, then we start to feel something. And so my sense is that what you are experiencing at nighttime, it typically happens at night, we're ruminating, it's like, oh, geez, oh gosh, you know, all these thoughts that are coming forth, it's because there's a part of you that just needs to say yes. That just needs to say yes to the unfolding of your soul's consciousness. And as we continue to say yes, the divine conspires for our highest good.
Yes.
Yeah. And your work is not even just in South Africa. Your work is global.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, I know what you mean. This is a feeling I've had for a long time when you were speaking about the feeler. I'm a feeler, a deep feeler, and I am always ready to uplift with the space and giving that opportunity for healing to happen. I walk into a room and I just spread an energy of healing. And I believe that, as you say, that it cannot be contained. I think my room has just, I've been working from home for so long. I need to go, I need to spread, I need to experience more. So that's what I need to do, is leave and go.
Yeah.
Thank you. Okay, on that note, I have been hired by Amazon. I'm the graphic designer for the Cape Town newly opened office. So I really think I just received the opportunity, the grace and for God to actually believe that I am that worthy.
Yes.
I am worthy.
You are.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Blessings to you. So, yes, and we're gonna hear from Vivian, and then we are going to we're gonna start closing out. So this was in service to each of us. Okay, that but apart from what she said, because you heard all of that, there's another thing that she said that's really important. If you know within yourself that you are an empath, if you know within yourself that you have a heightened sensitivity, then this is even more important for you. So it's hard to affect change if you are wounded, if you're taking in a lot of energy. It's very hard to do that. You're not wounded, and I'm not saying that you are at all. I'm just saying that those of us who walk in the world with an empathic heart and spirit, we have to find a way to impact change without allowing other people's situations to impact us.
Yes.
So in New Thought, we do something called spiritual mind treatments. So however you're showing up, for me, I've worked with all kinds of people, doesn't matter how you show up. So first of all, I imagine a bubble, and I'm encased in that bubble, so that I can continue to regenerate my energy and my spirit. So this bubble that I create for capacity, it doesn't matter how you show up. I see you as divine. I see your divinity. I see your light. I see who you were meant to be on this planet. You could come to me as a crack addict, as a homeless person, as a person who's been an alcoholic for 20 years. I know the possibility of healing. So I cannot see you as anybody other than who you truly are. It's what happens, what becomes really difficult in our work is when we keep seeing people in this state that they're in. That is energy draining. And it's actually not honest because they are divine. They just don't know it. So how do we help people without getting airy-fairy and all of that? Because sometimes us metaphysicians can be a little, out there, but how can we do that without, but that's another conversation. Mom,
let me first say, let me thank first to the Holy Spirit. Why? There are things that I'm doing that I'm planned even before me. I was also saying to Octavia and Patty, there is a reason for God to leave me with Octavia so that I can know her. And there's a reason for me to be here today. Because there is one thing that I want you to assist me. Praying for it for a long time. Emotions. I can't control my emotions. When Octavia did something that I feel Octavia was not supposed to do that, I feel like my emotions cannot be controlled. So this is what I think some of the things of my life have been blocked because of that. Because I will trigger and out of emotion. And then at a later stage when I'm sleeping, oh man, that's not supposed to be. This is wrong with me. God help me to, when I'm dealing with this emotion, what is it that I need to do to make sure that I'm healed? I'm having this thought of this emotion is not because of my background, because I understand that my background will not control me. How I grew up is not something that will make me not to be successful. But what I know, there is this something that I don't know that makes me to be very triggering to my husband, even to my child. Sometimes my child will say, Mama, it's better that I'm not going to leave you. Because sometimes you cause a lot of trauma to me. So that's what I want you to help me. I think to bring me here today so that I can be also part of the healing of this unity project that is here that God knows is for everybody. Thank you, Father. Thank you. If you can help me to feel this part of me that I don't know. It affects the workers that are working under my leadership. It affects the whole entire project. It affects my family. It affects everything that's happening.
Thank you. Thank you so much for your vulnerability, for your trust. Would you be willing to work with me individually over the next 3 to 4 months? Would you be willing to do that?
God, thank you so much, Lord.
So we'll start there. And would you be willing for we're going to end in 10 minutes, or 15 minutes, I promise you, we'll end very shortly. Would you be willing to do a little experiment? Could somebody give her the microphone, please? Can everybody relate to my ideas?
Yes.
Yes.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
She's not alone here. We've all had experiences where something triggers us and we react. And it becomes a part of, for many of us, it becomes a part of how we are.
And can we all just open our hearts?
Yes.
And just radiate love and light.
Yes, we radiate love to you.
Radiate love and light to them.
Yes.
And radiate love and light to everyone who is, Thulani is doing this.
Yes.
Just radiate love and light from your own heart space.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Everybody here is sending you lots of love. And I hope that you feel that. The first thing that we need to do is address the shame. You carry shame in your body, and shame in your heart because of how you are towards people. Shame always seeks guilt and punishment. So the more shame you have, the more you punish yourself. And the more you punish yourself, the more that happens. So the first thing that we do, this is gonna sound really crazy, but we invite that part of us, that anger or that part of us that snaps. And we say, I love you. Because you are a dimension of my being right now, and I love you. You are showing me something about myself. You are showing me that there is some unhealed anger that I have. It's also showing you that there are some areas of forgiveness that has to happen. So rather than pushing it away, rather than saying, oh, I can't stand when this freaking happens. I hate this. We say, oh, I see you again. Oh, you're showing up again. But here's the practice. We talked about mindfulness. The practice is this. You're going to always feel something first in your body, in your mind, and then you react secondly. There is a quote by a Holocaust survivor named Viktor Frankl. And the quote is, between stimulus and response, there is a space. And that space is our ability to choose our reactions. So it may not seem like it in the moment, but I promise you that there is a space. From when you feel triggered by something someone does or something someone says, and there might be a tendency to react to that. We become present with the feeling. We become present with, I'm about to react, I'm about to get triggered. Rather, we sit with it. And in that space, we choose something different. And that's where we free ourselves. Right now, your brain in your body is wired because it happens so often. It's habitual. When something is habitual, it seems like we don't have control over it. So what we have to do is we have to override that. We override that by becoming present. Even just letting yourself pause in the moment, not reacting, not saying anything. And the more you do that, I promise you, you shift and you do something different. But it starts, number one, with, are you willing to do this with me now? Okay. I forgive me. Just say, I forgive me.
I forgive me.
I forgive that part of me that I have not allowed to be fully expressed.
Not allowed to fully express.
I forgive me.
I forgive me.
I forgive me.
I forgive me.
Do you forgive you?
Yes, it's true.
Do you see that anger or that snapping, whatever it is, do you see that as being bad?
Yes.
Okay. So I want you to say to that part of you, I want you to just take a moment and just think about the last time you went off on somebody, the last time you snapped at somebody. Just think of the last time.
Last night.
Last night. Okay, what was happening last night? I want to share.
I was sharing with Otilio that my husband is working standby with the city of Cape Town. And then we are staying in the farm. While I was staying in the farm, we have two rules that we will open the door when we are leaving, because we want them to stay, and maybe if it's not outside, they can go and stay in the house. We love them so much. And my husband, because my daughter went for with the friends, and then early yesterday, and then now that we are in the farm, and then I want to continue for us to be there. We were there with them last year, and we don't know the area much. And then my husband was working, and then I asked him around about 7:30 late, are you still at work? I said, yes, I'm still at work, and he sent me the pictures because he's working on water and sanitation. And then now I was not thinking, I was thinking, for me, I was not supposed to be angry because I didn't know what my husband was going to do. Because I was thinking that, oh, maybe he took some people with the truck and then drove them around and drove them in their different, not thinking about what is happening in our house. And then I would just blow out of proportion. Okay. And say, why you couldn't even think of going there earlier and maybe talk to your leader and say, I can go first and go to the house. What was I thinking? Because they told me, I couldn't know it. I would think like that.
So pause for just a moment because you're saying something that's really important here. Okay, so there is a part of you that actually feels rejected. And you carry the vibration of rejection in the world. It's not only your husband, it's not your husband, that there's some part of you that feels like you've been rejected or that you're not being put first or prioritized.
I think my mother.
Okay, yeah, so it's a deeper wounding. Beautiful. Okay. So this is what I'm saying, and this is in service to everyone here, my love.
Can I share that everyone needs? In terms of my mother, the assistant of mine, which I'm the breadwinner, I'm the one who is making sure things are happening. But I have this feeling that my mother doesn't appreciate that I do more. And my sisters are not the breadwinners, but they are the ones who have been appreciated more.
Yes, okay. So I hope send her love right now. Just send her love, please. Okay, this is in service to all of us, and I promise you it's also in service to me. When you're yelling and snapping at other people, you're snapping and yelling at your mother. That's the deeper wounding. That's the deeper wounding. And that part of you has not yet been healed. I promise you, I've had this experience. As soon as you started talking, it made perfect sense why we didn't do that. There's a reason why we do that. There's a reason why people take things out on other people. It's because they're carrying an old wound. And so now, with all of this love that you have with your brothers and sisters in this space, now we extend our hearts and our hands to you, Ma Vivian. And in this moment, We see your healing and we see your restoration.
Yes.
In this moment, even if has your mother transitioned? Has your mother gone on? Your mother's still here. Oh, your mom's still, oh, what a beautiful opportunity you have to heal the relationship with your mom.
Yes.
And so in this moment, we extend our hearts and our love to you. In this moment, we see the full transformation and healing with your mom. In this moment, we actually even see that there's something that's happening in your body temple, where you are becoming more congruent in mind, body, and spirit.
Yes.
And that you will pause the next time that you're in that situation, that you're gonna pause for a moment, and you're gonna allow the feelings to just wash over you. And then you're going to speak to the person with as much dignity and respect as if they were God right in front of you, because they are God right in front of you. Okay, so every person that you are entertaining, that you are working with, see them as a divine child of God.
Yes.
See them as divine. It doesn't mean that you don't experience anger. It doesn't mean that you don't experience upset. It means that you're becoming more masterful in your emotions.
Yes.
That you are a metaphysician, that you are an artisan of the soul.
Yes.
Okay? It doesn't mean that you don't get angry. Jesus got angry.
Amen.
Okay? We're not saying don't get angry, but what we are saying is that we have to become more masterful in how we work with people and how we navigate energy. Okay? So we're not going to be aggressive towards them. Now we're going to look at Octavia. And we see her divine light, we see her love, we see who she is, and now you're going to relate to her completely differently. And so we are affirming complete wholeness and healing in this very moment. And we also know that when you leave here, so there's something that Dr. Joe Dispenza talks about, if you're familiar with Dr. Joe Dispenza, he talks about the river of change.
Yes.
It will feel a little weird because your brain is used to just being aggressive. So things will feel a little weird. But as we work together, a shift will begin to happen. And then you will find that there will be a completely different way that you will interact with people.
That's the second part. That I feel maybe the house, from two ends on that one. Octavia was sitting at the table. My husband was calling and calling, and didn't answer.
We forgive it all.
Yes.
We forgive it all. We forgive it all. Most of us are unconsciously acting out of ignorance anyway. And this is why mindfulness is so important, because mindfulness invites us to be present. There's so much we could do here, but I want to pause. Because we've been here, and I'm so grateful for your time. There's so much that we could say.
Yes.
Okay, but let's just kind of be present with this. I thank you for being vulnerable. It was in service to all of us. It was in service to all of us. Many of us have had difficulty. I have a difficult relationship with my mom, and I've had to work on my own healing with my mother. So I promise you that I'm speaking the same. Okay. I hope this was helpful. I hope. If you're here tomorrow, the talk tomorrow is going to be on being and becoming. We're talking about the liminal space. And the liminal space is the space of being and becoming at the same time, simultaneously. So we invite you to come for that talk. Yes.
Yes, tomorrow at 10, we'll have our service, and Thulani will be our minister of the day, and it will be on becoming, on the process of, we are on shifting sands. Yes. Things are happening so fast. And who are we becoming in these changing times? Who are we becoming? And, you know, we need to be cognizant of the energy that we are bringing into the space, wherever we are, not only the space, you know, in our work situation, in our projects, in our churches, wherever we are, because if we are not conscious of our own energy and what we're bringing into the space, we will be swept away with what is going on. You know, there's politics going on, elections, and people are angry, and there's load shedding, and there's so many things, you know, that are happening, and we are not even aware that they are depleting our spiritual energy. And I totally agree with Thulani when she said the first most important thing is to stay connected with the divine. Yes. To stay connected with the divine. And we spoke about something so beautiful. I don't want to be long, you know, to be willing, And when you get into this space, this, you know, in your mindfulness, in meditation, when you are in meditation and you are in the silence, and you want to be a catalyst for change, like we said, wherever we are in our spaces, we are a catalyst for change. You have to give consent. If you just say, I consent, I agree for this energy within me to shift, you know, go into prayer, affirmation, and whatever, you know, mindfulness. But the most important, just the way saying, I consent. Because most of the time, we come, you know, to change, we come to affirmative prayers, but there is something in us that is still not consent. Are we together? Yes. So the moment we consent to truth, the moment we say yes to truth, what happens? There is a surge, and you can actually feel it in your body.
Yes,
there
you
is
can.
a
Actually, everybody
surge.
stand up.
Yes, there is a surge that comes out.
Yes. So, yeah,
Yes.
let's say yes. Right?
Yes.
So let's say yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So we're just doing an affirmative prayer on this yes right now. Okay. So, and so how good it is to be in this space of becoming at this moment. How good it is to say yes to the divine and yes to the evolution of our soul's consciousness. Yes. We know that every sweet soul that is here today is here to give birth to their own unfolding. Yes. That everyone here today is giving birth to beauty, intelligence, creativity, healing, wonders. And so we just open our hearts and our hands right now and we say yes to that part of us that yearns to be more.
Yes.
We say yes to that part of us that yearns to be catapulted to a greater self-expression. Yes. We say yes to that part of us that is truly divine in the work that we've been called to do. And we are so grateful for it. We're so grateful for this opportunity. We're so grateful for Rev Thulani for opening up this sacred space to all of us. Yes. We're so grateful for every sweet soul that is here. We know that we're not leaving here the same.
Yes.
We offer our gratitude and our thanksgiving.
Yes.
And so it is.
And so it is. Amen.
Yeah, so we just keep saying yes. Thank you all so much.
Okay. All right. So I want to hear what you say, even if you whisper it to me.
Thank you so much.
Okay. Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
so make sure you.
Okay, before we go, okay, we'll have a lot of time to take pictures. Before we go, you are all invited. We'll have teas and coffees and, you know, snacks and things like that, so we can not fellowship really, just to get to know, to network, to connect, okay? So the tables will be set, so please don't run away now, and then we'll just have teas and coffee. Normally in Unity, we have what we call our coffee sessions. Yes, and then, but you spoke about something so beautifully, to actually see the love and the lights that we are. Okay, another thing, the love offering. Okay, I actually forgot. As you know, we will take an offering and from each one of you, if you are, you can also make a online, those who are online, and Gabriela will give you the bank details to as a gift, you know, to give to Dr. Thulani and to give to Unity. So we'll take an offering now. And I wanted us to sing, I love it, just to behold the love and the light of each one of us. I see you for the love and the light that you are. She's so beautiful that each and everything that is in front of you is the love, is the divine. Every person in front of you is the divine. And so as we give the love offering, I see you, okay?
I see you for the light that you are. I see you for the light that you are. I see you for the light that you are. I see your light. I see your love. I see who you are. I see your light. Oh, the light that you are. I see you for the light that you are. I see you for the light that you are. I see your light. I see your love. I see who you are. I see me. I see me for the light that I am. I see me for the light that I am. I see me for the light that I am. I see my light. I see my love. I see who I am. I see us for the love that we are. I see us for the light that we are. I see us for the light that we are. I see our light. I see our love. I see who we are.
So much. And you are invited tomorrow for the service. Dr. Thulani will be going deeper.